For lesson 5, we'll be talking about writing expressions. To start, let's make a list of some of the vocab words that we know that mean each operation, okay? So words that you know mean addition. Let's see. We have more than, increased by, some, gain, greater than, altogether, total, in all, and combined. This is not all of the words that mean addition. It's just the ones that you're most likely to see. So let's make a similar list for subtraction. Fewer, or fewer than, difference, loss, decreased by, less than, and less than, this one, I'm going to put a little note on it with these arrows showing to switch it around. And we're going to talk about that in a little while when we see it in an example. We'll come back to this, why I put those arrows there. All right, multiplication. Product, times, each, per, twice. You might see double, or you can keep going, triple. For division, we have quotient, divided by, split, or split up, half, or shared equally. So even though it has the word equal in it, it's not meaning equals. It's specifically telling you to divide it up, share it equally. All right? And then equals, there's really only a couple ways that we see this in a sentence. You could say same or the same as, equivalent, or a really small word is, or you could also say are if it needs to be plural. So 5 plus 5 is 10. In that sentence, the word is means equals. Okay, so these are not all of the words, but just most of the ones that you'll see. So if you think of something else, feel free to add it to your list on your paper. Okay, so now that we've got that list, we can start thinking about writing expressions. But let's talk about what expressions are a little bit more in detail. So verbal statements, meaning like a sentence, can be translated to algebraic expressions. It is like deciphering a secret message or translating from one language to another. So you're translating from English, words written on a page, to math symbols. An expression is a mathematical phrase that contains numbers, like 5 or 1/2, variables, like a or x, and operations, like multiply, divide, add, subtract, exponents, parentheses. It does not contain an equal sign. So this whole box up here about equals, we don't use that unless we have equations. We do not use that for expressions. Okay? And we'll talk about that at the very end of the notes. So now going into the expression, each expression has different parts. We talked earlier, you could have numbers, variables, operations. So let's look at some terms of an expression. So terms of an expression are the parts of the expression, separated by a plus sign or a minus sign. So the 4D and the 9 are terms because they're the parts of the expression with a minus sign in between them. Another example of terms would be If I had like 3a plus 2b, these are the terms because they're separated by that plus sign. Okay, that's one of the hardest words to learn because it's kind of a weird one. But it's super, super useful to know. Okay, now, so those are the terms. If we go further out, the entire thing is called an expression. So the terms make up the expression. Within each term, there are other vocab words. So this 4, we talked about this before, is called a coefficient. The number out front of a variable, the number multiplying a variable. So that means D is a variable. And then there's a fancy name for this number 9 here. It's called a constant. Just like a coefficient is a number attached to a variable through multiplication, a constant is a number all by itself. So just a plain old number with nothing attached to it. So 9, or over here I could add on another one, I could say 7. That is a term, but it's the constant term because it's just a number. It's constantly 7. It's not ever going to change. We're not multiplying it by anything. It's just 7. All right? So last up, we have variable. We have numbers. We labeled them. We just have to label the operations. There's one right here. And then there's that secret one that we don't ever write the symbol for in between the 4 and the D, and that is multiplication. So for our examples here, let's use annotation. We're going to write the English as math. So circle the numbers, and a variable also counts as a number. So where it says a number, that just means a variable, a number we don't know. And then I'm going to underline the operation, more than. And I know that that's plus because it's in my list. So it means 8 plus, and then we need a variable. I'm just going to use n for number, but you could use whatever letter you want. 8 plus n. The difference, meaning subtract, between a number and 5. So a number, we can say n. So it literally means subtract n minus 5. Last one, 19 added to, so underline the keyword, circle the numbers. 19 added to a number means 19 plus a number. And I'm using n as my variable. So next up, just a few more. 6 less than n. Now earlier I said less than means subtract, but I also put these little arrows on it. So hold on that thought 1 second. So here's 6, and then n, I'm circling because even though it's a letter, it's technically standing for a number. So we're going to do 6 less than n, which is actually n minus 6. So do you see now why I put the arrows? So if you see less than, it actually flips around. And if you're not sure why, just think of a simpler example. If I said, what's 4 less than 10? That means 10 minus 4 equals 6. So 4 less than 10 gets flipped around and means 10 minus 4. So whenever you see less than, you have to flip around the numbers or the variables that are given in the sentence. Number 5, the difference of 10 and Q. So that's the letter Q. Difference means subtract. We have 10 and we have Q. I'm not flipping this one around because it doesn't say less than. So all the other subtraction words, you don't flip it around. Only for less than. Okay, number 6. 19 added to J. So we've got 19, we've got J, and we're just adding them. We don't know what any of these variables stand for either, so we can't do anything more. Number 7, 14 increased by, so plus B. 14 plus B. Number 8, K less 7. K less 7. It doesn't say less than, it just says less. So we actually don't have to flip it around. It has to specifically say less than to do that thing that we did in number 4. So this literally just means k minus 7. 12 less than p. So 12 less than, remember our annotation for less than is minus with the arrows because we're flipping it, p. So it's not it's not 12 minus p. We have to flip it around. It's p minus 12. So you're saying 12 less than p. So take p and remove 12 from it. Number 10, the sum of g and 11. Sum means add, g and 11. So g plus 11. Number 11, t decreased by 3. So t minus 3. And you can write your t kind of curved a little bit if you have trouble telling between like your t and a plus sign. That's just another way to write it. Or make it capital if you need to. As a reminder, multiplication is written side by side with the coefficient, meaning the number, in front of the variable. We've been practicing this for a while, like 3a. 3 the coefficient, a the variable. So here's a couple examples. The product of 9 and n. Product means multiply, 9 and n. So you would write 9, n. You don't need to put the dot. You don't need to put any multiplication symbol. Q times 12. I'm going to write 12q to use that type of notation. Twice a number, n. Twice means times 2. So I'm not going to write n times 2. I'm going to write 2n. 16 multiplied by j. So 16 times j, but we're not going to write the dot. We're going to write 16j to use that fancier notation. Okay? So with division, you have to determine which term is the divisor and which is the dividend, meaning which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom, if you're going to write it like a fraction. Okay, so k divided by 10 means k divided by 10 in the order that you wrote it, or k over 10, k divided by 10. So the first number would be the top number for the fraction. The quotient of x and 6. So that's x divided by 6 or x over 6 if you wanted it to be a fraction. 9 divided by c. So 9 divided by c or 9 over c, 9 divided by c as a fraction. The quotient of 4 and q means 4 divided by q or 4 over q. Okay, so either way would be okay to write it. It's usually safer to write it as a fraction, but either way is acceptable. Okay, so now we talked about this briefly earlier. An equation shows when you have an expression that's equal to another expression. So equations have equal signs in them, and they are the topic of our entire next unit. All right, so let's just look at 2 more examples on here, and the rest I will leave up to you, and I will put the answers right at the end. Okay, so 4 times w is 18. So 4 times w is, meaning equals, 18. So I'm going to write 4 times w, 4w, is equals 18. So that would be how you'd translate an equation. One more. 1/3 the sum of 11 and p. 1/3 is a number. Sum means add. 11 and p. So we're going to say the sum of 11 and p would be just 11 plus p. Now we need 1/3 of that. So if you want 1/3, you would want to divide it by 3. And here are the examples 2 through 8. so that you can see those solutions if you want to try them yourself or just look over them. And just a note on number 4, if you see the word of, that usually means multiply.